No, I got Umbreon too. The only two that I have XL. Who's on the call? Diane. Y'all don't know Diane? She put out
Diane.
a lit tweet a little bit ago.
Yeah,
right?
That's my claim to fame.
Am I right though?
Trainer Tips liked my tweet.
Trainer Tips did too. Everyone liked it. Oh, they went close combat? That's wild. Oh man. Wow, this is going to be interesting for sure. Machamp with Gallade in the lead? What did they do against the Togekiss? Just die?
It was...
If you want, share in chat so they can see what it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yo, check out these pro Caleb strats. Lapras as a Shadow Machamp counter. They don't get better than this, yo. You think they shield this? Probably not, right? I don't think Surf's enough. Yeah, there we go. Oh, it's gonna be interesting. Oh! Alright, I pulled that off at least. It's still not over though, but... The Gallade is low on energy, that's for sure. They might try to sack me back though. Before. It is what it is, right? Nice.
Half-Lift donated $10.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I really need to up my donation timer so I can see it longer. Donation, I appreciate it. I might actually read it by the actual name because that's all I see on PayPal, so I apologize. Hey everyone, I have a new Ultra League Premier line for you all, and I know it's a little bit later in the Ultra League rotation, but this is kind of an expensive line, so you might not even have the resource for it, so it's something to work towards for when Ultra League comes back around next time. The team I'm running is an XL Galvantula with Lapras and Empoleon. My own Galvantula actually isn't even fully maxed out, so it's actually quite underleveled, but I just didn't have the XL candies for it. But ideally, you want a 100% Galvantula or a near perfect one to power up right under 2500. Lapras could be XL, but I don't have enough candies to XL, so it's just a regular Lapras. I did showcase this team last week on my stream as well. I don't usually do my own GBL sets on stream, but feel free to check out my Twitch in the link down below if you want to check out some of my lines being used before I make these videos. Sometimes my patrons will be using it that I'm coaching on stream, so you still might get a sneak peek without me using the line myself. So getting into footage, grass is definitely an issue for this team, so you definitely want to just stay in with your Galvantula. Galvantula is a okay check to the grass, but it is quite glassy, and especially against Abomasnow, even though you're doing super effective damage to the bug damage, they usually shield and they can get to the powder snows pretty quickly. So what I do is I shield the first one and then just let the next two go. They need 3 to take you out if you shield the first one. So I just go for the second lunge, and they usually have to double shield to keep it healthy, or they just let it go. Most won't double shield, and that just come in and farm down with Empoleon. There's no way to get to an energy ball in time at this rate, so it's actually pretty good to have this energy on Empoleon. Mainly because Empoleon with energy is much more useful than Lapras. And so as you can see here, very useful to have the energy, and luckily my opponent actually doesn't shield. Backline fighters with a grass and lead is actually quite tough because both grass and fighters check this line pretty hard, and you really only have Galvantula as the most reliable checks to those. But they're going to come in with their Dripline right here, and then this is going to be GG's. So why I'm running Ice Beam on my Lapras over Skull Bash. Skull Bash is generally preferred in Premier. However, Lapras is my main safe swap here, and so I figured most people won't swap in a water into a Lapras if I safe swap it, which means that I'm more likely to draw out the grass and force shields with Ice Beam. So that's my main reason for using Ice Beam Lapras. For the most part, it's been fine. It has backfired on me a few times, such as a Slowbro in the back end or a Politoed in the back, and I just have my Lapras left, right? But overall, I've liked it. So in this specific scenario, it is an Umbreon lead, but they safe swap their Venusaur right away. So in this scenario, we're just going to assume it's a Venusaur lead because I didn't really do anything to swap out. But you definitely want to stay in there because you have a good check to Venusaur there. And again, that's your best check, and once they bring out the Venusaur, you're in a really good spot. And then I swap to my Empoleon here just as a pivot, and the main reason behind that is because I burned the energy on this Swampert and I have my Lapras. This way I can still save my Galvantula for the Umbreon, which has a pretty solid matchup because of that super effective damage from the lunges. And as you can see, I saved up energy on the Galvantula, which helps a lot. And so a big thing with playing with Galvantula is that you really need to understand when to debuff and also when to leave a matchup with energy so you can debuff right away when you come back into match. That's something I've learned a lot about using this line, and I think it's come in quite handy. So at this point, I have a lot of health on this Lapras still, but this Earthquake is going to do quite a bit of damage, and then my opponent actually swaps out to clear the debuff. So I'm just going to try to farm down the Swampert here and go for the Ice Beam here on the Umbreon. It'll do a decent amount of damage. It doesn't KO right away, but it puts it within 1 Ice Shard range. Alright, so against water types, it kind of depends on the water, but for water types that are weak to electric, such as Empoleon, this is pretty solid lead. And so again, I go for the lunge and I swap. Once you lunge and then swap, you pretty much ensure that you can ensure switch advantage throughout, which is really nice. And then this is actually a pretty solid matchup for me, so I'm going to stay in here. And then the thing is, the opposing Empoleon has come into the mirror, which is still not the best scenario for them, but that's pretty much what they had to deal with. And this mirror matchup, I have a lot of energy too, so I can really chip away at this Empoleon. I am debuffed there, so it's not going to do nearly as much damage as it should, but yeah, it is what it is. Still able to take it down to half health, which is pretty nice. And then I come in with my Galvantula, start farming with some Volt Switches. I do shield that Hydro Cannon, and then I'm going to shield again. Might as well finish off with a lot of energy. Once I finish off the Empoleon is still healthy. So what I'm going to do here is not throw the charge moves yet on my my Galvantula because they can still swap out. So I guess I could have potentially lunged and gone for a potential shield or gone for discharge, but I figured Lapras has such a good matchup anyway here, so it's fine. And then I'm going to force a slash shield, and then Galvantula is going to win CMP. They actually choose not to shield because they realize it's over. That's a good thing about Galvantula as well, is to win CMP in many situations is quite attack weighted, which means that having that energy stored is just an extra bonus. So against a Lapras lead, this is pretty solid. So what I like to do against Lapras is drop a move and then swap out. Mainly because you draw out the things that are weak, the potential running fighters in the back and stuff like that. They actually aren't running a fighter in the back, they're just running a Driplim, which is actually pretty good because Driplim is pretty weak to the entire line. They actually shield there again, and then I'm going to let this one go. Yeah, so the main reason I swapped out of such a positive matchup there is because my opponent is staying in with their Lapras against my Galvantula. It probably means they're weak to Galvantula in the back, and Lapras might be one of their best answers to it. So that's not a good sign if you're the Lapras user, but so that's the main reason why I swapped out. And then now I know that they're energy dry, I come in with my Galvantula again. And here comes Clefable. Obviously, I know the lunge is resisted. However, the reason why I threw it is because now it ensures that it's debuffed enough that I can't hurt my Lapras much, and I can get the discharge off no problem. And then I'm just going to farm down this Clefable now. It's not going to do too much damage. And then I have 2 surfs ready for this Lapras. I know the Lapras just dropped a Skull Bash earlier, so it's out of energy. And then these 2 surfs will be enough. So yeah, so that's a situation where like you have to understand that it doesn't seem like lunge would make sense there against Clefable, but if you think about it in the long term, it made sense to get that lunge off and additional discharge, and then also resist all that damage on Lapras, right? All right, so Jellicent, quite a strong Pokemon. As you can see, I kind of let the Dragonite farm me down a little bit further, so they can't farm too much off of me. But I think I should have let the Dragonite farm me just a little bit further as well, just to ensure that there's as little farm on this Jellicent as possible. Jellicent is kind of a pain. XL Jellicent, this is something you see as you climb the ELO ladder quite a bit, and also they're baiting me, which is not great. And then I find that a lot of Jellicents actually have Machamps in the back, which is just really rough, because even though you have a positive matchup against Jellicent in the lead, you also need a Galvantula for the Machamp, right? Because Jellicent checks the backline really well, so you kind of have 2 things you have to deal with, and you're really stretching your Galvantula kind of thin here. This is unfortunate, but this is kind of the only thing I could do here. Luckily, I forced them to burn their energy, which is nice because I could farm the Machamp a little bit, but their switch timer's up. But Jellicent XL, so bulky, so bulky. So yeah, still 1 Volt Switch off, but that Bulb Beam is going to do it, and then can't finish off the Machamp. So even despite the very positive lead, it's Jellicent is a pain. Hopefully you all don't have to deal with it too much. We're going against the Swampert here. I'm going to swap to my Lapras, which is the most reliable check to it, but again, Lapras is one of the best safe swaps in my opinion, so that's the main reason why I safe swap this to Swampert, even though it doesn't have the best matchup against, even though Swampert has a good matchup against Galvantula and Empoleon to a degree. Alright, so I'm going to shield this in case it's Outrage. If it's an Octazooka, then I could just tank the next one, no problem, and hopefully not get debuffed. Let's see, and I don't get debuffed, which is huge. And then I'm going to come in with my lunge and start throwing away at the Swampert. Swampert is going to take a decent amount of damage from these lunges, which is why it's still not a bad matchup if you can have it come in with energy. But I'm going to shield this in case it's an Earthquake, because that's going to one-shot me for sure. And then here comes a Alolan Ninetales, which is very positive for Empoleon here. But they pretty much have to go here because go Empoleon or Ninetales because their Swampert is so low on health. But at this point, it's pretty much GG's. I could just farm down this Ninetales and go for the Hydro Cannon on the Swampert. Yeah, because Swampert's not going to have enough to throw another Earthquake, and they're going to concede the match right there. So Politoed, also a pretty solid water to lead into. However, these Weather Balls actually kind of hurt, and they come out quick. That's the thing with Galvantula, is it doesn't resist a ton, so you are taking neutral damage from water damage, which isn't great. So I do force a shield there, which is nice with the lunge. Then now we go straight for discharge and hope they don't shield. Unfortunately, I kind of got greedy there and went for another Volt Switch. So at this point, I'm like, all right, might as well get another Volt Switch in because I could have thrown discharge a little bit earlier. So now I do have a slight, I do have switch. But I'm going to charge up my energy a little bit and I swap to my Lapras. So I have 2 Volt Switches on the Galvantula still, and as you can see, Drifblim quite weak. Both Drifblim and Skarmory are quite weak to this entire line, so having both in the back pretty much was an ensured victory, and then they concede the match right there. Gyarados. Love to see Gyarados in the lead. I don't see it enough, unfortunately, but it's very solid. And then Talonflame safe swap perfect here. Just make sure you want to count the moves so you get as much energy as you can before you have to throw your own move. And then I'm going to shield the second flame charge and then just waterfall down at this point. And then this will give the Gyarados very minimal farm for off of my Empoleon. And we go straight Drill Peck. It's going to do neutral. They're not going to shield there, that's fine, and they're going to insta-swap to Machamp. So this is actually good to see, because now we get the fighter out. Lapras has an okay matchup against Gyarados, and so I'm going to shield. It's going to be a cross-chop, unfortunately. I probably did a bad job counting, but what I'm going to do is swap to my Lapras instead and absorb this damage. So this Machamp is debuffed. It's also not Shadow, so that's pretty good, because that means that I can survive, tank these cross-chops much better, especially because they're already debuffed too. Alright, and then Lapras here, I'm just going to, I was trying to go for the Ice Beam, but they get to the charge room before me, but that's fine, because now I know that they are low on energy, and then even if they don't shield this, they're debuffed. That's huge, and then unless they have an Outrage here, I'll survive it. It's going to be Aqua Tail, and just will switch down. Alright, Kingdra, another Pokemon where it's okay. It's taking neutral damage from Galvantula, so what I usually do is swap, but they swapped actually sooner than I did. Actually, I'm trying to think. No, I think I swapped and they just simultaneously swapped really quick. It's kind of hard to tell in this clip because it's sped up, but I'm pretty sure I swapped out first. So because of that, they counter swapped me with their Empoleon, but honestly, going straight Surf against Empoleon is not the worst case scenario because Lapras is so bulky. It's going to tank these Drill Pecks pretty well. You know, having Skull Bash sometimes is nice because you buff your defense, so the Drill Pecks do less damage and so the Waterfalls, but going straight Surf, as you can see here, is still pretty good because now this Empoleon is out of energy, but I decided to farm it down with my own Empoleon instead. Main reason is, like I said before, Empoleon with energy is quite deadly because it has a move that checks pretty much most of its counters. This opponent is going to drop their energy, and unfortunately it's the Octazooka, but at least I don't get debuffed. So I assume now they're going to probably go for the Outrage, but that's fine. I swapped to my Galvantula to throw a lunge, and they actually simultaneously swapped to Venusaur here. Surprisingly, they come into Venusaur with Empoleon, but as you can see, they're going for Frenzy Plan, and I could tell from how they charge their energy, so I wasn't too worried there. And then I get to another lunge, so this is huge. and then they actually shield. So I'm going to obviously save a shield for the Frenzy Plant because they're going to do the most amount of damage. And then now they should be within one Drill Peck away from being KO'd. And even if this is Outrage, I'm not too worried because they can't get to another charge move in time. And then I will get to the Drill Peck. As you can see, this team does take a little bit of finesse, but I think that's most of my teams. You know, you can't. There's not really the most straightforward way to play matchups sometimes. But all right, this is kind of tough. Dragonite leads are really rough for this team because it only takes neutral from electric damage and it really chunks away at Galvantula. So of course I swapped to my Lapras, even though it's the best check to it. I just can't really force shields nearly as easily with Empoleon. As you can see, if I did, that Escavalier would have just really countered me down. As you can see here, I decided to try to win switch, which I do. I'm pressing on that Ice Beam, but unfortunately that one turn fast move takes me out before I could get to it. That would have been a game changer for sure, because that would have forced a shield or taken out the Dragonite, one or the other. But unfortunately at this point, especially down a shield in the Galvantula mirror, I'm in a tough spot, and I lose CMP too. So another thing to note is if you want to use this line and have an under level Galvantula, like myself, the thing you have to know is you're going to lose CMP to most other Galvantula you see, because most people do have one maxed out, and they're going to beat you to the move every single time. So I do have a mirror matchup later with the Galvantula lead, and I'll show you kind of how to play that out. It's still not a great situation to be in, but it is what it is. So Charizard, terrible lead for sure, because you are weak to that fire damage, even though your discharges are super effective. You're just taking way too much damage in the process. My opponent here actually swaps to their Snorlax before I swapped to my Lapras, which is kind of weird. I think I was swapping to my Lapras when they swapped as well, so they either anticipated it really quickly, or they actually swapped out first. So why would they swap Charizard out of a Galvantula, right? That's a good question if you're asking it. So I'm going to shield this Rock Slide because, as you can see, this Machamp is a huge problem for my backline. So I need to get rid of it as soon as possible. So they actually shield the lunge. That's nice because now it puts it within waterfall range. Actually, it actually doesn't even KO my Galvantula after debuff, which is pretty wild. But it was the regular variant rather than the shadow variant. Alright, so this Charizard, as you can see, is actually running Wing Attack, and that's why I swapped out, because this doesn't have nearly as positive matchup without the fire damage, but that farm down with Empoleon helped a ton, and then now I could just slam back-to-back moves on the Machamp and finish it off. Alright, so Galvantula, Mirror, how do you play this out? So what I do is I try to sneak in a Volt Switch, because I know I'm going to lose CMP. So as you can see, I snuck in a Volt Switch on that first charge move, which means I will get to the second lunge before they get to the second lunge. Does it make a huge difference? Not really, because the thing is, the opponent will eventually catch up, and as you can see here, they're going to get to the third lunge before I get a third lunge. So, and we're going to CMP on it, actually. But the issue is they're always going to win CMP because they have a higher level Galvantula. So, it's not, small victories, I guess. But I think it's still going to be the third lunge that takes you out anyway if you shield the first one. So I don't know if it makes a huge difference because you're CMPing throughout all the way as well, even if you don't sneak through the Volt Switch. But as you can see, this backline is quite weak to my backline. So that's the big thing to note, is that usually people that use Galvantula lead are usually weak to water in the back. Not always, but mostly from what I noticed, which means that I just need to stay relatively even against the opposing Galvantula and weaken enough so that my Empoleon can finish it off, and then we're usually in business. And my opponent actually quits there thinking I probably had Skull Bash. I actually don't have Skull Bash, but maybe they didn't have Skull Bash either, to be honest. So yeah, I ended up working out there. Okay, so my opponent here, Shadow Machamp, you definitely want to stay in here. They actually swapped their Snorlax, so what I'm going to do here is charge up to a lunge. They are going to hit me with a Body Slam, but it's a normal Snorlax and they're debuffed, so I'm not too worried there. I get another Volt Switch in, and now we come with my Lapras. This is really good to have the Snorlax debuffed because the superpowers are not going to be enough to take out the Lapras. That changes this matchup completely, which means that you can farm up a bunch of energy for when that Machamp comes back. So as you can see, Machamp is back in. They do throw a Cross Chop, but what I'm going to do is throw my moves because I have pretty much 100 energy at this point, so I don't want to let that go to waste. I can either flip this matchup or force him to shield and take even shields. I aggressively swap to my Galvantula to try to take out this Machamp, and they actually let it go. And then now here comes a Shadow Charizard, but this Empoleon is going to definitely do work against it, so I'm going to shield what looks to be probably a Blast Burn, but ends up being Dragon Claw, but that's fine. They don't actually get to the Blast Burn in time, and they're going to concede the match right there. Go against Rise to occasion, and a great battler and streamer as well. And this is definitely a tough matchup for Rise just because, he does a great catch onto Snorlax, right? And so we just saw this last time too, so I'm going to drop the lunge, and luckily I actually don't get hit by Body Slam, so I still have a lot of health on my Galvantula, which is nice. But as you can see here, not too worried about the charge moves here. There you go, superpower, but that's fine. I do have to throw the Surf now because he didn't go double superpower, he went one superpower, so his Body Slam is going to do quite a bit of damage. But this puts him in a good spot. He actually comes in Lapras here, which is pretty smart because the Lapras can tank the Surf much better than the Toxicroak can. But this is fine too. So he's going to do something similar that I did against Snorlax, farm a bunch of energy and throw at my next Mon. But because of that, I'm going to come in with my Empoleon and do the same thing that he did and just absorb the water damage with a water Pokemon. As you can see there, and then we both go for a quick swap here. It doesn't really matter if I caught the Mud Bomb or not because I still have to shield it, but at least I don't let him get any extra counters against my Empoleon. And so I'm going to go for another lunge. Again, this is resisted, but the thing is, a lot of fighters are quite glassy. You got Shadow Machamp, Toxicroak, Surfetch, like they're all super glassy Pokemon, so even if you don't go for the super effective move, a resistant move is actually still going to do quite a bit of damage. So I do finally take out the Toxicroak, and then now this puts me in a very, very good spot. I could just go straight Drill Pecks and take out the Lapras. Worst case scenario, somehow they take me out. Like 1 or 2 Volt Sources should take out the Lapras anyway. Yep, and that's going to do it for the Toxicroak lead. So this is kind of a spin on my Shadow Machamp, Lapras, Snorlax line. But yeah, anytime you see a fighter and like those 2 tanks in the back, you're usually in a pretty good spot. Right, Escavalier, kind of pseudo fighter, but still have a lot of similar coverages as the traditional fighters. So same thing, nerf the Kingdra and then go into Empoleon here. Why I didn't go in Lapras here is because Empoleon is going to be a little worse against Escav, I think. Actually, it might be similar to Lapras, but I like Lapras against Escav more in case I have to match that up. And then Lapras and Galvantula have really good pairings because if you have a Swampert in the back, Lapras is going to do really great against it. Whereas Empoleon won't do nearly as good against it. And, oh, so here actually is a Swampert. Yeah, so I actually forgot that was the 3rd Pokemon. But as I'm saying right now, had I brought in the Lapras into the Kingdra, then it would have been Empoleon against Swampert, and that would have been much closer because that Earthquake is a bigger threat, right? But they're going to see a match right there. And then Gallade lead. So another kind of fighter, but very different properties in terms of using Confusion over counter. Still a threat to the backline. Empoleon is actually not bad against it, but Galvantula is much better in my opinion. So they actually go for double Leaf Blade. My Galvantula survives with a lunge still intact. I have a little bit of energy on my Empoleon, which is nice to have a head start, especially against a Venusaur. They're not going to shield there too, which is nice. So I'm going to let this Frenzy Plant go because I know I get to another Drill Peck unless they throw right away, and they do throw, but that's fine. At least they'll be low on energy, and because of that, I'm going to actually come in with Lapras. This Ice Shard will be enough to take out the the Venusaur. I'm going for lunge here against this Charizard. Really gutsy for them not to shield, but that's fine because they didn't shield, these Blast Burns are not going to hurt nearly as much. I'm going to shield the first one. They're probably going to go straight Blast Burn because they had a 2-to-1 shield advantage with energy, but I just need to get 3 Surfs and take out this Charizard. And the thing is, this next Blast Burn is not going to do enough damage. Usually I'd be kind of nervous at this health range, but because they're debuffed here, no big deal. And then I could go straight Surf and then take it out. At that range, they actually had to go for another Blast Burn. They came and go for a Dragon Claw, so the debuff there came in really handy. G-Fisk. It doesn't get worse than this when it comes to counters. Yeah, maybe Typhlosion. Typhlosion would be pretty bad too, but this is pretty bad. So I'm going to swap my Lapras here. It does okay against G-Fisk because you can still do super effective with the Surfs, and Lapras is quite bulky, so you could really tank the Rock Slides fairly well. And then I'm going to go straight Ice Beam here to do as much damage as I can against the Gallade. I might have been able to get to 2 Surfs instead, and that might have been better. But I thought I was only going to get to 1 move, so that's why I went Ice Beam. So I am going to just... I end up shielding 1 of the Leaf Blades, which is okay. I just wanted to have a little bit of energy. I didn't want the energy to go to waste in case it was going to be a close combat. So I'm going to come in with my Empoleon here and then shield this, what might be an Earthquake. And it is. And then here comes Togekiss. Togekiss is definitely a struggle against Empoleon, but they don't really have any really solid checks outside of low health G-Fisk. So this is pretty much their best bet. Yeah, so quite tough for them. But now I have a lot of energy on the Galvantula. I'm going to throw back-to-back lunges at this G-Fisk before he gets to Rock Slide and take it out. So having that energy stored again, very useful on Galvantula. You just always have to keep in mind of how much energy you actually have on your Pokemon when you're swapping them in and out. Magnezone. So once I saw the Gallade safe swap, I had a feeling that this might have been the youngest line, which is Magnezone, Gallade, and Venusaur. A pretty strong line, especially the Venusaur in the back is very scary for my team. But what I noticed is also against a Gallade, I don't know about Shadow Gallades, but regular Gallades, if you debuff it with a lunge, you can actually tank close combat on your Empoleon. My Empoleon is a pretty solid high ranked one, so you might want to double check just to make sure yours can tank it as well. But it just ensures that you don't have to use a shield, which is really nice. So they actually have a Driplim in the back, which is much better for my team. So I love to see that because my whole team does really well against it. Most of these Magnezones will go straight Wild Charge. So I'm going to shield it. It's going to be resisted, but Galvantula is quite glassy. And I'm going to shield this next one too. Yeah, might as well farm up a bunch of energy on this Galvantula because then Driplim has to dump his energy to take it out. And yeah, and this is going to be GG's. Gotta go straight Ice Beam and take out this this Driplim. Excuse me. Yeah, they need to go straight Shadow Ball here. They need a bunch of Shadow Balls to take me out. At least 2.5 more. I'm going to go straight Ice Beam and take it out there. Alright, Skarmory lead. Very solid for this team because, as I said before, pretty much the whole team has to play against it. They go the bulky Jellicent safe swap. But I'm going to go straight Discharge here. They actually don't shield it, which is really nice. And I choose not to shield the Bubble Beam, so I don't fall for the bait, which is nice. And I charge up to another Discharge. And I'm now going to bring my Lapras. So this is a Bubble Jellicent, which is even better for my Lapras, but it was so low already, it didn't make a big difference. And then this Lapras can start chipping away at this Skarmory. It's going to be huge because even though it's resisted, even though it's debuffed, as you can see, it still does decent amount against Skarmory. Yeah, they're going to have to pretty much take me out with Brave Bird or Sky Attack. They actually store the energy, which is interesting. And they bring in Swampert. So I bring in Empoleon here. This might not have been the best play, but luckily they don't go Earthquake, so I'm kind of wasting some of their energy by just letting them throw Hydro Cannons instead. But I'm going to let this next Hydro Cannon go as well. I still have energy on my Lapras. Oh, the reason why I swapped out is because I was debuffed. That's the main reason. Yeah, that makes sense. So now I come in with Lapras and go for the Surf. I don't even mind if they take me out with an Earthquake here. Let's see if they do. Or let's see if I shield. Yeah, I don't shield. So they go Earthquake. That's fine. Again, I have a bunch of energy on this Galvantula, and because they use Earthquake, they're low on energy, right? So I'm just going to farm down this Skarmory. They had a lot of energy stored from before, which was smart by them, and then they're going to concede the match right there. Because I had almost 100 energy and 2 lunges for the Swampert. Alright, another Umbreon lead. I guess the earlier one I just mislabeled, but it was supposed to be I thought it was going to be Venusaur lead. But anyway, this one is actually another Umbreon lead with the correct graphic. So they swap out right away into their Alolan Ninetales. If they stay in, I swap out eventually after dropping a lunge. Because you don't want to take too much damage from the Umbreon, and your backline is not terrible against Umbreon, especially when you're debuffing it. And that way you can still draw any fighters. Most people probably won't have a fighter in the back, to be fair, with the Umbreon line, because then they'd be super weak to a Charm lead. But I do have energy on that Galvantula still, so I'm going to drop the lunge right away and see if they shield or don't. They don't shield, which is huge. Let's see what they have them back. So yeah, so this is pretty tough because it's a Clefable against a Galvantula and a Lapras. Again, I'm going to go straight debuff here. They have 2 shields. I don't really care if they don't shield these because Lapras can build these charge moves really quickly, and they can't swap out to clear their debuff. And that's the big thing, right? And this really just helps closing power. And yeah, so right here, as you can see, I just need to throw 2 Surfs and then take out this Clefable. And I was able to even beta shield out with the lunge too earlier, which is nice. So yeah, there are definitely times you want to use this charge. You don't want to overbait too much. As you can see, I'm kind of baiting a lot in a lot of these matchups with the lunge in a maybe not, maybe not best recommended situations to throw lunge, but it usually works out overall. Alright, so this Snorlax is going to get their Bison off before me. I could swap, so I charge up a little bit more Volt Switch first and then swap out. So you always want to keep that in mind. Charge up a little bit first and then swap out. That way it'll make your next matchup a little bit easier, right? Because now I know I'm 1 Volt Switch away from the lunge or discharge, and if they drop all their energy here, I should be able to get to it, no problem. So they're going to go Octazooka here, and I actually get to another Ice Beam, which is huge. Let's see what happens there. The debuff actually saved them right there. But I'm going to come in with my Empoleon just in case they had enough energy. And again, Empoleon with energy, pretty nice to have, so I'm going to go straight. Hydro Cannon right here. Let's see what they do. They shield. They shield, which means they're probably quite weak to Empoleon on the back. And as you can see from this Clefable, it is the case. Again, going for that debuff first and then go for Discharge. They don't shield the second one, which is nice. And then now I could just straight Waterfall down, and they're going to see the match right there. A lot of people today quitted for me for some reason. Yeah, I guess it's going to shorten the footage a little bit. This is like, I don't know, I feel like the 7th time someone's left a match before it ended. All right, Alolan Ninetales in the lead, and then with the Jellicent safe swap. Again, Jellicent is quite deadly for this team because all of them are pretty much running Shadow Ball, and they're resisting all the moves from Lapras. Even at a Skull Bash, it'd be pretty bad. And then Empoleon could do neutral with Drill Peck, but it's just not enough given how bulky Jellicent is. So the scary thing here is the Jellicent's going to have a lot of energy for my Galvantula. And Galvantula does not want to take a Shadow Ball, but luckily they are putting themselves close within Volt Switch range, so I'm going to let this move go. It's going to be Shadow Ball, no problem. I'm going to just Volt Switch it down, and then let's hope whatever's in the back line is weak to Empoleon. It is. It's a G-Fist. This is perfect. G-Fist is quite bulky, especially excelled in Ultra League, but against Empoleon with shields up, that's going to struggle. Look at that. Look at the waterfall damage just chunks away. So I'm going to shield this, ensure that I win this matchup, and they go another Earthquake, and just going straight waterfall down, and then this Alolan Ninetales is really going to struggle against Empoleon as well, and then I'm going to go for another Hydro Cannon right here. They go for Dazzling Gleam, that makes sense. My Galvantula does have energy, so if they shield this here, they actually don't shield. They just concede the match. I was going to swap to my Galvantula if that was the case. Alright, Gengar. Gengar is a little bit tough for Galvantula, especially even if they go Shadow Punch. You could win in maybe 2 shields if you bait with lunges and stuff. But outside of that, it's not a great matchup for Galvantula because it's very spammy too. And I actually draw out the G-Fist here, which is really nice to see because if you get rid of the G-Fist early on without it matching up against your Galvantula, even better. So I'm going to throw these Surfs, and like I said before, the Surfs is actually pretty solid, and they actually end up losing Switch there, which is huge. So now I could, it's not the best spot because I don't have a good check to Gengar. Gengar's still okay against Empoleon as well. But they bring out the Venusaur, that's nice, and I'm going to swap to my Galvantula, and then I believe, yeah, I do shield. Unfortunately, it's just a Frenzy Plant, but that's fine. I want to preserve as much health on this Galvantula as possible so they can't farm me down, and then take out the Venusaur as soon as possible too. Because Venusaur is going to be annoying for my Empoleon to deal with. Gengar is kind of rough for Empoleon as well, but yeah, so here they swap out, and unfortunately I cannot get to the charge move in time. I'm going to let this go because my win con is hoping they're not throwing Shadow Ball and going Shadow Punch. Because now I can just farm down and then hopefully get to a Drill Peck before the Venusaur gets to move. And yep, and we're going to end up working out there. So that was me in Ultra League Premier using the Galvantula team. As more people have more and more XL mons, this is definitely going to be harder and harder to play Ultra League. So hopefully if you want to use this line, you can hunt down some Joltics and power up your own Galvantula just so that you can kind of stay on par with a lot of the competition. A big shout out and thank you to all my patrons who've been supporting my content creation. If you'd like to have early access to my strategies and lineups, feel free to sign up through the Patreon link down below. If you like this video, feel free to give it a like and share, subscribe for future content, hit that notification bell to get alerted right when I post a new video, and I'll see you all next time.